Maybe. There we go. All right. Welcome, everyone. It is Ash with TC Spotlight. Here tonight, I have Alyssa, who was Leroy Richard Stalker's girlfriend. Um, we will talk a little bit more about that. Welcome, Alyssa. I'm glad to have you back.
It's Stoker.
Stoker, didn't I say that? I got it right the first time when you were here before. She did an interview for me. And, we're just going to come back and break things down a little bit. Leroy was in a standoff with police on May 4th.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about that. She was on before. We're just going to break things down a little bit more this time. This happened out of Camden, Tennessee. I just want to make note of that because of what we're doing with the 13th district. We eventually want to do that for all districts of Tennessee, and this is the 24th district.
Yes.
So we just want to make note of that. You can scroll through the page and find out what we are trying to accomplish with the 13th district. Like I said, this is out of Camden, Tennessee, so the 24th district. So we really want to, after we're done, run through all the districts. So if you are in that district and you feel you can relate to anything that you hear tonight, feel free to reach out and let me know. I just ask everybody to please read the banner below. We don't make any accusations. This is just all informational and to help bring awareness to Leroy. I am going to play a clip. Before we get started, I like to always either tell or show, if I can, a little bit about who we're talking about before we get into those days. So I'm going to play a little clip. It's a very good clip because I can relate to it. It's something that we do with my kids. And it just shows what a good father he was. So I'm going to play.
Now the bear's gonna eat you.
Look how many stickers I won.
Ooh.
We play that. I was just telling you before we went live. We play that with my kids all the time. He had a lot of energy for those two little girls. I see that on your
Way
page.
too much.
A lot of videos of him and the girls, and he just seemed like he loved them very much. I'm very,
Well,
very
every kid.
I'm very sorry. It is very, very, very sad. I hope they are doing well. I know how old is your oldest daughter?
7 and 5.
So, she may not understand fully, but she's very, very aware that he's not there anymore. I've seen the posts that you made in your group, and it is very sad.
For Christmas, they were trying to go down to Tennessee to go see him.
Oh, and I could not imagine. I tell everybody, I live by this stuff. Like anything could happen, and even if when I'm in the bathtub, my youngest, he's 2, and he'll just call out, mom, 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 and it just gets me thinking, he would still do that if I were not here, and it really breaks my heart for your daughters. It really does.
I'd try not to think about stuff like that.
But I think a big part of the reason in bringing awareness is I think a lot of people like me in my situation, it's hard for us to go there, and you guys have no choice. And I think a part of getting this done and bringing awareness is tapping into that and imagining and thinking and coming together. So I'm very sad for the reason why you're here, but I'm very, very glad you're here so I can help you bring that awareness. I, for anybody that doesn't know the situation very well, I just want to just start off by asking, best of your knowledge, just tell us where Leroy is right now and why.
So, to my knowledge, both of his parents need to sign a waiver or whatever for him to be released from the funeral home. So, to my knowledge, he is currently inside of a safe. His cremains, so he was cremated. His ashes are inside of a safe in a funeral home until both of his parents sign the paperwork.
Which is and the only reason why I bring it up is I just wondered if maybe there was, and I can understand. Like I don't wanna say that I don't. I can understand very well why it may be hard to compromise on that, but I also just want to bring Leroy home. That would be the end goal for me. So I just wanted to bring it up in relation to if we brought enough awareness or attention to the situation, like a petition everybody could sign, to bring awareness to the situation, just to bring it up, see if maybe it could help just bring him home.
Hopefully soon he'll be somewhere that's not locked up.
So and that's all I want to do. That's my only goal. So, and I don't know as far as that. So if anybody out there knows, and that's why I bring up, if anybody knows anything about petitions or, if that is something that could change anything about, bringing Leroy home, just please reach out and let us know. I think that would be a wonderful thing to do, just to bring him home. I can't imagine as a mother. I can understand, but I cannot imagine at the same time. So I just think he needs to be brought home. So if anybody has any information on petitions, on how that works in relation to that, that is an area I do not know. So I just want to make, would it be worth something doing? Could it bring the change that we're looking for? So yeah, I just want to do that. Now, what I want to do is I want you to run through, I'm not sure how many of our viewers are aware of what happened to Leroy. I want to start out by you just pretty much running us through what happened that day as far as Ellie. Tell it to us the way they told it to us.
So I have a report here that goes through their version of events. It says at 3:30 on May 4th in the afternoon, they blocked off George Street. And then at 3:32, they were to clear a crowd. At 3:33, they were with the US Marshals attempting to locate Leroy. At 3:49, they they were told to contact the electric company in order to shut off the electric. But it doesn't say when the electric was cut off.
Yeah.
At 4:05, it says that Leroy was confirmed to have had an AR. At 4:16, they had requested the Henry County Sheriffs and their units to come and help them with all of their equipment. At 4:27, it says that they got a directive to have everyone out of the houses that surrounded the house Leroy was in. At 4:29,
Now, is that when everybody came out, or is that
that is the surrounding houses
okay?
that they got a directive to begin clearing them. At 4:04, they began to clear the houses. Here, you can see what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's like three pages about.
Oh, there's a lot more pages.
Yeah.
There's 15 pages altogether, but only 3 pages that have a narrative.
Yeah.
So at 4:04, they were out clearing homes. And then at 4:27, it says that he has everyone out of the houses that directly surround the house. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Except for 2 people that refuse to leave. At 4:29, there were 2 officers making the scene with an MWRAP, MWRAP. I'm not sure what that is. And then at 4:46, a soft round was shot off, which I'm not sure what a soft round is. So that was at 4:46 that a soft round was shot off. Then there was nothing until 6:01 when they were told to get in touch with the fire department to get a pole to help bust out a tall window. So then at 8:01 and 14 seconds, they contacted the fire department. At 6:04, it says that they asked the EMS, so the ambulance, to stage closer and also to get the fire truck on the scene. This was at 6:04 still. At 6:05, the EMS stated that they were already staged at the station. At 6:06, they contacted the fire department to get a fire truck. At 6:15, they picked up a shield and ram from the sheriff's department. Then, at 6:15, they picked up the shield and ram from the sheriff's department. At 6:50, they were at the 2 of the officers were at the sheriff's department to get the Gold Explorer water and generator, and they got back to the scene at 7:13. So from 7:13 until 8:35, there was nothing. And at 8:35, they stated that they needed the fire department to make scene. At 8:40, they contacted the gas company, and the gas company said that they can't confirm whether there were gas lines or not. At 8:44, they said that they were talking to the gas company to try to figure it out. And then 3 seconds later, they found out that the the house Leroy was in did have gas. It doesn't say whether or not the gas was ever shut off. And then at 9:25, it says that the all it says was the name of the coroner, his phone number, and what he was, and who the driver was. And then at 11:19, it says something about a tanker. And then from there, it's just talking about what addresses they went to pick up friends or people who were on the scene to bring them into the police department to question them. And that was from 11:31 up until 1:33 in the morning. They were with several people questioning them at the police department or on the scene. It says that at 3:08, they were standing by at the residence. I don't know why, but let's see. On here it says, let's see. I have a sheet of paper that says when they actually left the house the following day. Okay, the last officer that left the scene was at 5:44 on May 5th.
So our officers arrived on scene at what time?
3:30 on May 4th.
And the last officer left at
5:44 the next morning.
At what time did they bring Leroy out?
Roughly around 9 o'clock at night on May 4th.
So, and the first, and if anybody is watching and they have information on this and that we are wrong, please correct us because we really want to know.
Right. That's why I said roughly. We don't know what
in relation to the soft, what they call it, the soft
round.
Yeah. I would assume, wouldn't that be, the first initial the canister they would throw in?
To me, I would just coming from not knowing much about tear gas, I would assume that a tear gas canister would be a hard round, but
just like
I don't know.
So yeah, I'm curious on what a soft round was.
Right, because I don't know.
Do you have knowledge of around the first time that was? Because I know all of this was very heavily recorded by witnesses.
Correct.
I don't want to show any of those videos just out of respect, but it was very well documented.
Correct.
Throughout the whole day, and that you do have those videos on your page.
Oh, I do. Except the only one that I do not have is the last one that has his body being brought out. Just because that is a very, I've watched it so many times that I have desensitized myself in a way, not completely, but for his family, that is extremely sensitive to watch.
Right.
And it's hard to know that other people are watching Leroy laying out on the ground in the rain for hours.
And like I said, it is very, very heavily documented that day. That's exactly why I did not want to post it. It's just out of respect, if it's there and you want to watch them, you can find them on your own.
Right.
So, okay. Kind of let's back up, and there are a lot of inconsistencies and questions based off of the autopsy report. I've seen it, and we've talked about it.
Right.
The rundown through what they're saying is, they responded to this house. And Leroy, these officers knew Leroy very well. It can be safe to say
Too
that,
well.
right? They knew him.
Too well. If Leroy was in jail, he would call and be like, "Hey, call Kenny. Kenny will come get me. He'll transfer me anywhere. If he had to go to a different jail, call Kenny. Kenny will come get me."
They knew him, they knew him very well. They knew that he was considered a runner. If he, they knew him. If he can get the drop on him, he'd be out.
There was a time we were at his cousin's house, and he wanted to show everybody how fast he could run and how high he could jump. And as soon as he hit that gate at the end of the driveway, he caught his pants and just whoop, flipped. So good thing he wasn't being chased that time.
My husband's the same. He'll tell you in his rowdy days, if he could get a drop and get out of there before he would absolutely. So they knew who that. I feel comfortable in saying they knew who they were dealing with. In any of those times that they ever dealt with Leroy, was he ever known to be violent or pull out a weapon on them or have any violent nature towards them? I mean, it depends on who you're asking if in any way is violent nature towards them. Did bodily he's never came out. He's never.
Nope, he's never had any violent charges. Not even nothing. No violent charges.
So they pretty much said they arrived on scene. There were 6 people in the house, including Leroy.
Right.
He wouldn't. They told everybody to come out. He would not. He was the only one that would not come out.
Correct.
Called for backup. They shut down, and on the way out, they let the officers know that Leroy was armed inside. They taped off the whole block,
Yep.
and he just wouldn't respond. It led to 30 to 40 canisters being tossed inside.
We've heard a lot of different numbers, but the narrowest number, which came from a lawyer, was 35 to 42 rounds of tear gas.
And again, this happened between what we'll say they got there around 3:30,
and he was pronounced dead at 10:10 p.m.
And in all that time that we know, there was no response from Leroy from the inside to out.
Nope.
There's
from the moment that he was dropped off. There was no contact between Leroy and anybody other than who was in the house before they evacuated.
Okay. So, we know that they know Leroy very well. I think we have that pretty much established, and so when the officers first arrived to the scene, this is where I was a little still unclear. I've went back and I've watched your interview that you came on and did previously, and I looked at the timeline and everything. And one thing that just wasn't clear to me is exactly how it came to be with all the people, the 5 individuals coming out. That hasn't been so much talked about. And the only reason why I want to bring it up is when just walk us through when they first got there. What happened when they first got there?
So, back in October, I finally was able to get a hold of one of the people that was inside of the house. And I asked what happened, pretty much. I was not having a good day that day, but I asked what happened. they said that they saw all these cops outside, so they went outside her and another person went outside to go see what was going on because they thought that there was being a raid next door. And when they went outside, they were asked if Leroy was in the house and if he had anything on him. They said that Leroy was in the house and that he had an AR-15 on him. So the officers let them go back inside, try to get Leroy to come out, and asked everybody else that was in the house to come out as well. And all those 5 people, so the 2 that came out, they went back in, got the other 3 that were in the house except for Leroy, and she said that Leroy was refusing to come out, and if they wanted him, they had to come in and get him. So that is what she has stated. So the 2 went back in, brought out the other 3. So then the 5 were all outside, and the little dog. There was a little dog there too. So, and Leroy was left inside the house. Because from what she is saying, he refused to evacuate.
Okay. So I just want to bring that up, and as we progress, to paint a picture of these cops knew Leroy. I feel that if they thought that he was a threat and knew he was armed in there, and he would actually use it, that I don't think that they would have sent those people back in there regardless. And the questions I have, I guess, are, why would they send him back in after that information to a potentially dangerous situation rather than stepping in and taking over themselves? So that's the question that I have is why would they? And the only answer that I can come up with is they did not see Leroy as a threat.
Right.
So,
I mean, from speaking with the sheriff, I think that was back in October as well. When I spoke to the sheriff, he only had good things to say about Leroy.
yeah.
Even in situations where Leroy would run or Leroy would be arrested, he had nothing but good things to say, and he would laugh about it.
And once he knew the jig was up, it didn't take any extra. He wasn't pulling about it.
The sheriff said that it was like a game to Leroy.
Yeah.
Like
cat and mouse.
Yeah. Which, if you would have heard Leroy talking about it, that's how it was. Like, he would say that if he wanted to go to jail, which nobody wants to go to jail, but if he felt that it was time for him to sit down, he would not run. He would still make them like come and get him, or but like, I don't know.
Well, and that's all I'm really trying to paint, is a picture that they knew him and they didn't think he was a threat. And I just find the events that unfolded that day very excessive for them knowing him and have dealt with him and knowing his nature. And for one, another question I have is, they knew he was a runner. Why would they send somebody back in to tip him off so he can sneak out the back door?
Right.
Just a lot of things about that just doesn't add up to me. Right. I just feel at that point why didn't they take over? So they go back into the house. They all come out. From that point, Leroy isn't responsive to anybody.
Correct. They had a megaphone, and the sheriff said that in the past, if Leroy knew that he was on the scene, Ken Christopher, the sheriff, if Leroy knew he was on the scene, Leroy would come out because he knew that Ken would protect him.
Now, was
Or-
he one of the? He wasn't one of the original on the scene, was he? Before?
In this specific on May 4th.
Yeah, when the first officers on the
Yes,
scene
and was one of the first. He's the sheriff of the Benton County Sheriff's Department, so he was one of the first people there.
like when they even before they realized Leroy wouldn't come out, he was on scene.
Yes, to my knowledge, anyway.
So, and that just furthered my questions on instead of sending them back in, why didn't he use that? Just them knowing, again, just knowing Leroy, why didn't he take that?
Right.
Nothing.
Like, Ken was the type where if he was going to arrest Leroy, he would uncuff him from the back and cuff him in the front so that Leroy could smoke a cigarette, they could drink a Coca-Cola, and then they would ride in the truck. Like, Leroy wouldn't be in the back. He'd be right next to the sheriff in his little shackles, just talking shit, like shooting the shit, not talking shit at him, but like just sitting there joking around and talking. Anybody that I've talked to at the sheriff's department, they say the same thing. They like, even the corrections officers, the secretary, like everybody knew Leroy, and they all joked around together.
Yeah, he's here, but he's pretty easy to get along with, and it's actually,
Right.
There's been time, like you said before, where he's kind of resisted, put up a front, and they've had to go get him, so it just makes me question why everything was so different about this day.
And Leroy knew his rights very well, so if they didn't have probable cause to search his vehicle, they were not going to search his vehicle unless there was one time they broke his windows out to be able to pull him out of the vehicle and search it. And they still found nothing.
But he was never, never, they always felt able to go in and go physically get him.
Right.
Before.
Yep.
So after they come out, he responds with a microphone. No response. They know from the people that came outside, they said that he was armed. And like I said, there's plenty of video of witnesses around the neighborhood.
Right.
You see the whole situation, and from an outsider that has seen it, for somebody that's armed inside, the atmosphere is just very relaxed for somebody who is supposed to be armed inside. And even if that were, the truth, that just brings me back to, they knew him well enough, they didn't feel, none of that video looked like they felt threatened by what they had been told.
That's how I feel.
They were very relaxed. Like I have said to you in private, it kind of just, if you're not watching the situation, it kind of just looks like there's a big old neighborhood party, like a huge block party, and police are just there kind of to make sure everything keeps, from breaking into hell.
In my opinion, it kind of was a block party. They had pizza delivered to them, and the cops sat outside eating pizza, having their own little party.
And there's just plenty of footage of the officers being really close to the house.
Right.
I'm just looking around, not aware, not acting the way I feel.
Right. I haven't had police training, so I don't know how they're supposed to act.
Yeah.
But from what I would think, if somebody had a rifle like that, or I don't know, is that what an AR? Right. Like, yeah, even a handgun. But from what I would think police training would be, I don't believe that they would be that close and
not in position, and they're in their
Right.
These guys are just walking around with a flashlight, looking around. They're not even looking at the windows. I mean, there's one where he's just walking right past the window, and you can't tell what's going in. And I mean, even people surrounding, if there's somebody that's violent inside with the gun. I mean, the whole neighborhood was pretty lax. I mean, they had their perimeter blocked off, they're taping, and they had everybody backed up.
Which in the videos, it looks a lot further away than it really is, because those are small houses. Like, they don't, when you go, there's maybe, I don't know, I don't even know my measurements, but that is, let's say, I don't know, maybe a 900 square foot house that Leroy was in. That, give or take a little bit. But the next house is maybe 20 feet away, and that one is the same size. Then where those videos were being taken, I'd say that was probably about 100 feet from the house.
Yeah, at one point, not to bring it up respectfully, but in the video of with them actually bringing Leroy out, when they were video recording it, they were more on the side, and they were pretty close to it. So, and I just say that in relation to supposedly somebody's inside with a armed weapon. It's just the whole atmosphere of it. I've seen, and I'm not trying to compare, but for a majority of the standoffs I've ever seen, it is a very intense situation, and for that, just what I seen that day, it didn't seem like that. It just makes me believe, they didn't feel that Leroy was a threat, and I feel that because they knew him so well. They knew him. So I just think that, they didn't, he wasn't never known to be violent. I just, that's the atmosphere that I got. If he was really inside there, I don't think, with the gun, I don't think that they would have been acting that way.
Right.
So he doesn't come out. He doesn't come out. So they throw the soft round, whatever that is. We're not sure what that is. If anybody's tuning in, please, we would really like to know what they meant by soft round. Is it the canister? Did they just throw a warning canister in to kind of coax them out?
Right, because on here, it only says that about that one soft round, but in those videos, when you can hear them shooting off the rounds of tear gas, and from what I understand, there was also flashbangs. I don't know how many, but there's several thrown at a time. It's not just one, wait 10 minutes. It's doo, 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 doo.
I would really like to talk to anybody that has experience in tear gas, just to come talk and reach out, and just so they can answer my questions. Either come live, or we can talk in private. It's a matter. In relation to this, I would just really like to hear somebody speak on somebody being in the house, consciously in the house, with that many rounds of tear gas going on in the house. How long could they withstand that? And they threw 38 to 42.
That's what we've been told.
So I'm just curious, anybody that has experience with tear gas, what they think on that. Myself, I would like to hear their thoughts.
From what I have been told by some officers that I've talked to, that house should not have had more than 2.
Let alone 38 to 42.
Right.
I mean, and especially, again, like somebody that they had a history with. If he everything they exhibited that day showed me that they didn't think he was a threat. I don't think it would have taken 32 to or 38 to 42 canisters of tear gas to pop in there. So
I'm-
it's just crazy to me. Now I would understand. I would not ever understand. Let's just make that very clear. But I would understand a little bit more if they did not know Leroy, if there wasn't that history, if there wasn't, you know what I mean? I guess I would understand. But then I feel like they would have been a lot more intense at the same time.
When I Googled because it says oleo resin capsicum canisters, so an OC canister. When I Googled that, it said a person can usually be subdued easily. It causes instant and temporary immobilization and incapacitation.
Very interesting.
That's just from Google. But Google said, but Leroy said that Google was the plug, so we're just gonna rely on that until I'm told otherwise.
So I just want to, the only reason why I'm saying this and bringing it up is to point out that there was a very wide range of time where they could have went in before they actually ended up going in.
Well, the first people into the home were the fire department. It was not even officers.
Yeah, I say, yeah.
Which is very, very strange to me.
Yeah. Everything about that.
Yeah.
Especially when you know the history behind them.
Right. Leroy did not have a background with the fire department, but he definitely did with the sheriff's department and the big Sandy police department. Anytime I would go down to Tennessee to visit, we had to go special ways. So we weren't going through town.
Yeah. I can relate to that. It just blows my mind as you learn the relationship that Leroy had with these individuals involved that day. So I want to he did when they finally went in. You said from 3 on till what, they entered the house at around 9.
Yes, around 9 o'clock, roughly
around 9. So from 3 to 9 through come out, no response. 38 to 42 canisters later, around 9, they decide to actually enter the house. Do you know what made them actually decide to?
That I do not know. I'm assuming that it was because of the fire. I'm assuming that they probably thought that he was immobile by that time.
It wasn't just smoke. It led to a full-fledged fire. And
right.
in the video, right before you can see the officers, they were at the back of the house, because throughout the whole video you can see them all around the house, like going in the back of the house. They were very up close around the house throughout the whole. And so I mean they were very comfortable.
Shortly before the fire started, you can see officers go on to the left side of the house to the back, and then you see them run back to the front. Shortly after they run back to the front, you can see smoke start in the back, and then you start seeing it coming out the front windows, and then within seconds of, I don't even know, I've watched the video so many times, but then all of a sudden flames start shooting out of the one back window, which is a bedroom window.
So,
which this is a brick house.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I'm gonna pop this up, and you have this window circle, and I will ask you kind of why you have it circled here a little bit to explain. But I just wanted to pop the picture up real quick, just to give everybody a picture of
Yep.
what the
Watching those videos sucks. Seeing the smoke. Okay, so that picture, I have the window circled that I have been told by 2 separate officers that Leroy's body was found in. And there was smoke just pouring out of that window.
So it's almost like, they
So-
knew exactly where he,
No.
in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but
Right.
it's almost like,
But I'm assuming since there was so much smoke, they would have known that Leroy was not able to view he wasn't able to see.
yeah,
So it was safe to go in. However, from what I understand, they still hadn't made contact with him by the time that the fire department went in.
yeah.
So he could have blindly shot if he really wanted to.
Yes, but like this whole time, they never had contact with him. So for
Right.
them to be so up close, like here on the left here, in the driver area is where the cops were running in the video coming back from the backyard. And these windows, they are low, and they were very, very much close to them, and they didn't have their guns drawn. They weren't, I would say, in the position they should be in if somebody was inside with a weapon they thought was a threat. So that's just the biggest question I have.
Right.
And it is
Yeah.
crazy. Now, so when they went in and got Leroy and took him out, can you explain just how they found him?
So I spoke to the chief of police first. The chief of police is the owner of the home, which he rented it out to some of his family members. He said that he was told Leroy was found against that front bedroom door with his back up against the door, sitting up. And then I talked to the sheriff and asked him how Leroy was found. And he stated that Leroy was found in a closet with a blanket wrapped around him in that front bedroom.
No, they said that he was sitting up back against the wall.
Right.
So I just wanted to kind of like, it would be kind of like this, instead of a back against the bed, it would have been against the wall.
Right.
I mean, he would have the blanket wrapped around him.
Right. Which I'm assuming if he was trying to cover his face, he would have been like that, but having the blanket pressed up against his face, I would assume, if that is what happened.
Now again, this is whose house was this? You mentioned it.
Okay, so this house is owned by the chief of police of Camden, Tennessee, but he rented it out to, I know for sure, one of his brothers and one of his nephews. I don't know if anybody else lived in that home or not, but I know that at least 2 of the chief of police's family members rented the home from the chief of police.
So
this was their family home. It was the chief of police mom's house. Once she passed away, he inherited the home.
Yeah.
From what I understand.
Which is very interesting. Very interesting, given how everything unfolded that day.
Right.
And then again, how well, in relation to knowing Leroy, having that history. So it's just very, very in contrast when you think about it with each other on, them knowing this person and how things just unfolded the way they did.
Right.
With no response from Leroy from
Well, The chief of police, he by name did not know Leroy, but by face he did. Leroy did not have that same relationship with the Camden Police Department as he did the Benton County Sheriff's Department.
And
he was a big boy. That's what he would have said anyway.
it just goes to show you more, you know. Now the weapon, when everybody came out and they said that he had a weapon on him, what weapon did they?
An AR-15.
Which, if nobody is familiar, this would be what that is, right?
Yes, that is exactly what. Yes.
Okay, I'm not very familiar with guns, so I'm only just assuming that there are other people. And when we mention that name, they would just not have any idea what.
From what I am told, an AR-15. This is just what I have been told, so I don't know for sure. So correct me if I'm wrong, but not you, but somebody else. But from what I am told, an AR-15 is a military grade weapon.
See,
I don't know for sure, but that is just something that I have been told.
Again, if anybody can elaborate on any of the things that we talk about that we don't know, I would love to hear that. Because I wouldn't have known. I had to look it up.
Right.
So
we know nothing about guns.
So, and on all this time, again, the atmosphere is really relaxed with knowing that, from what they're told, he has that inside a house that they have no idea where he's located, or, you know, they don't have a clear view of him, and they're just very relaxed on the scene. So they bring Leroy out, and I mean that video is just heartbreaking to see, and the things that you hear surrounding it. It's just something that you, and I understand why
the screams in the back, like I still hear those screams, like but the person who took that video also, some of the things that she said, that it hurts.
Yeah. And so I won't be playing those videos, you know, that's something for you guys to, like I said, if you want to look at it, it's out there. So, and you know, and they bring him out, and, you know, you have all this information, and, you know, that's kind of the way they spun it to everybody, and that's what went down that day. So I guess I want to ask you, what was the biggest moment, or what made you first question something about the narrative that they were putting out there, pretty much?
So the night that Leroy had passed away, we had asked if there was a gun found, and some of the officers said that there was, some said that there wasn't. We talked to some of the people that were on the scene, some of his friends that were outside that had been questioned by the police, and some of them were told that they did find the gun, and some were told that they didn't. So that was a red flag.
But again, the day of afterwards, after they brought Leroy out and everything, you know, kind of on their part, respectfully calm down, did they enter that night? The LE, not the fire department.
I believe so. I would assume so.
But, okay, even if they did or didn't, so that night we know definitively that the fire department went in.
Correct.
You know, obviously.
I would assume if they were there that long, from Leroy was pronounced dead at 10:10 p.m. That's about an hour after he was brought out of the house. and he was there until around 1 o'clock in the morning on the ground. And then officers were there until about 5:45 in the morning. I would assume by then they would have entered the home.
Now,
I would assume.
while he laid on the ground. So
They're saying that they left him on the ground until he was able to be pronounced dead and picked up to be taken to the medical examiner's office in Nashville. He was pronounced dead at 10:10 p.m. So for around 4 hours altogether, he was laying on the ground. I don't know why I don't know why they couldn't put him in an ambulance to wait for the medical examiner or take him to the coroner's office.
Were there still a pretty heavy crowd around?
Oh, I'm sure. I know that some of Leroy's friends, they went home, and then the officers came to their house, had them come to the police station, and then when they came back, back through, they could still see that Leroy was still there.
That's ridiculous.
And let's see, they got to the office around 11:45 at night, and then they left around 12:46 in the morning, so like midnight 46.
Yeah.
And they said that it appeared that he was still there, that orange tarp that he was under was still there.
That is, I mean, I don't understand everything as far as the Ellie and why they do the things that they do, but I just don't understand why.
I wish that I did, because
I don't understand why they'd have to
make things a lot easier.
That long. So, you know, the gun, that was your first big.
That was more the gun.
Just as you were
getting a
hearing
straight answer about the gun was like, okay, so then why is he dead if you guys can't, like, if there is no gun, then why is he dead?
Well, I was just, I'm just wondering if Phil, we know that the fire department were in there that night. If the Ellie was in there that night and no gun was found that night, correct?
From what I understand, yes. No, from what I understand, the gun was not found that night. Some officers did say that night that it was found, but I talked to the chief of police, and he says that 2 days later, he brought the detectives into the home, and he found the gun in the hallway.
Now, where is the hallway in relation to
So
where it was?
if you go into the front door, there's a small living room which goes to a kitchen. The kitchen is in the back, and the living room is in the front on the left side of the house. If you go to the right side, from what I understand, because I have only been able to see what I can see from the front door, if you veer to the right, there's a small hallway that leads to the bathroom and a bedroom in the back, and then a bedroom in the front.
So they would have to pass where the gun was found. They would have had to pass.
Lost you.
I think she is frozen. So, in relation to where they found, in relation to where they found the gun, they would have had to pass it on the way to take Leroy out.
They would have had to go over it to get to Leroy, and then they would have had to bring his body over it again to bring him out of the house.
So for the next
From
2
what the
days,
chief of police is saying.
And then for the next 2 days, nobody entered the house.
From the report that I have, it only goes until, let's see. I thought that there was some that went till the 6th. Let me look. So on the 6th, they got there at, let's see. I gotta find it. My pages are all jumbled here. Okay.
But the 6th is the next time anything is recorded of anybody being. At the house.
That's page 14. Okay, so on the 5th, they leave at 5:44 in the morning. And then it says on May 6th, they come in at, it's in military time, so I'm just trying to think.
Girl,
It
when I
comes
was
in at
reading, I was like, I
2:38.
really wish I was more familiar.
Right. They come in at, this says the Camden Police Department comes in at 2:38 and they leave the scene at 4:23.
So they went in, they brung Leroy out. They pass over to where they would later, 2 days later, find a gun. They may know, it was 2 days out. Just for, it's just this mystery gun. Was he armed? Was he not armed? I just figured that for the gun would have been one of the first things that they would get a hold of after they.
That was the reason for all of this. So I would have assumed that that would be the first thing that they would find.
So
Or
then
at least look for.
So then from there is when you kind of started taking a deeper look into.
At least, maybe
Because,
not the details surrounding Leroy's death, but at least trying to figure out the reason behind why he was dead.
Yes.
Which all comes down to where is the gun?
I mean, and so then the autopsy report you have, and I have read, and you have in your group. What were some things that you noted in there that just did not add up or make sense to?
No, for me, it says that his diagnoses were smoke inhalation and thermal injuries of the body. It said that he had superficial burns to the majority of his body, soot deposition on his tongue and in his airway, meaning that when the fire started, he was alive. His carbon monoxide levels were at 64%, and he had cherry red lividity of the soft tissue and organs of the body, which from what I understand would be from the smoke. It says the additional findings is that there was minor blunt force trauma to his body, which I don't know specifically where. It did not say. And then right pleural adhesions, which means thickening or scarring of his lungs. That band, or it's like a band of scar tissue. This is just what I've gotten from Google. It's not from anybody professional, but it's like a band of scar tissue that joins two surfaces that are not usually connected. That's what I got from Google. If it's wrong, somebody correct me, please, because I don't want to be talking smart and not knowing what I'm talking about.
Want to do. That's exactly why I like doing this, is because that is my hope, is I can help you bring as much people that you can bring in that are aware of these things. And main goal is for LE or media, or to, you know, get that coverage that you need to just to bring awareness to them.
Right. So, like,
Well, now
one
the
of
blunt
the big
force.
things, what?
You go ahead, and I'll go. I'll come back to it, 'cause I want to talk about the blunt force.
Right. One of the big things for me was that his manner of death was ruled as a homicide, which that could be anything. That could be justifiable because they thought that he had an AR-15, if they thought he had an AR-15. But with the blunt force trauma, once I read that, I was like, okay, so there was blunt force trauma and it was ruled a homicide.
But it's not told, and that's what I was gonna bring. But it's not told specifically where this, and that's why I wanted to bring it up for anybody that would know why they would leave that so vague. They could help us answer, because when they typically blunt force trauma to the head, or, you know, the facial area, you know,
Right. It just says of the body. So I don't know if that means that he had been kicked on his body or punched on his body. I would assume that would have left bruises or something, but it did say that most of his organs had the red lividity, which I don't know if that is still from the smoke inhalation. It also said that he had remnants of fabric that encircled the bilateral ankles, which in my notes, my question is, was it his socks and shoes? Because Leroy always wore shoes. Constantly.
He didn't have any on, did he?
No, he did not.
Sometimes
he would even wear shoes in the shower. Like, but in the autopsy, it says he was received wearing black shorts, black underwear, a white metal necklace, a white metal watch, and a yellow metal earring. There are remnants of fabric encircling the bilateral ankles. So, like, I'm not joking. Literally, Leroy wore shoes constantly. He had, like,
especially in somebody else's house.
Girl feet. Like, yes, especially.
I would at least had my socks on, even if I was comfortable enough to take my shoes off. I would, you know, I would have still had my socks on. I do that in my house.
From what people have said, socks burn up easily. I have never burnt socks.
That's what I wanted to say, though. So I wanted you to speak on in relevance to what the autopsy states about him being burned. How? So
on this, it says that he had superficial burns to the majority of his body. From what I understand, that is like a sunburn.
Yeah.
His cause of death was like a sunburn.
Not anything in my that would burn up socks or shoes.
I wouldn't think so.
It would just make me question what those rings around his.
Right.
Between that and the blunt force trauma that we vaguely to the body, that we do not know exactly where it was.
Right. On his head, like right up here, there was a small amount of blood, about, I think it said 2 milliliters. Let's see if I can find it quick.
But he did not burn up. He did not burn in the fire. Most of the damage was
according to this part of the autopsy. Later on in the autopsy, his name is referred to as charred remains.
And he wasn't even charred. He was barely burned.
Correct.
And it's just a lot of things.
So it makes me. I can show it.
A lot of people looking out could just, you know, very well say and think that, oh,
no, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever, they crossed out charred remains and put Leroy Stoker.
But he was definitely identifiable.
Right. Well, I have in my notes, if his remains were charred, how was he able to be identified by tattoos by somebody who didn't even know him?
Did they ever find his socks or shoes, or at least a shoe in any?
Not from what I understand.
So between the blunt force trauma to the body, there was a little bit of blood, you said, on the top of
Between
his
his brain and his skull, there was a small pool of blood on the top of his head.
Between them him being unresponsive from 3 till 9 o'clock, the rings around his ankles, the remnants of a fabric around his ankles. He wasn't charred. It just makes you question. I mean, was he able to come out when everybody came out? I mean, we know that he was breathing. We do know that.
Yep.
And any other time that the police have been involved with him, again, they've had a very heavy, history with him. They knew Leroy. They knew him.
Yeah.
Was he responsive even when he refused?
Yes, he was always responsive.
Did he respond with them according, they knew he was alive in there because they could hear him. They knew that he was.
I don't know if it was because they could hear him, or I don't know the details on that. I just know that if they knew that he was in there, they would eventually go and get him. But not 8 hours later.
And not
or 6 hours later.
And not with 38 to 42 canisters.
Right.
Thrown in. It just really makes me question just where was that blunt for, they don't specify that. And that makes me really nervous on why they would left it so vague. But then they mentioned the bleeding between. And it just
some people said that he could have been trying to crawl around and not being able to see. He could have hit the top of his head. I don't know. I don't know if maybe he did get knocked unconscious somehow, whether it was from smoke or tear gas or something, some type of foul play. I don't know. But if he was not all mentally there at the time, he could have been confused and he could have bumped his head. That is a possibility. But I don't know the specifics because I'm not able to speak to the medical examiner.
This just has a lot of holes and a lot of unanswered questions in contrast to what they say happened. Now, in relation to the gun, I want to go back to that because I feel like that's something we need to know. Now, one of the issues with why do you believe that? I know that you don't believe that situation necessarily happened.
So on May 1st, there was a text between one of the people who was in the house the day Leroy died and somebody else saying that this person was going to be selling Leroy's gun and buying a vehicle with the money from it. The person who received those text messages sent them to Leroy, and Leroy responded, "Fuck it, I'm just going to be killed anyway." So I am questioning if there was even a gun there at all at any time from May 1st to May 4th.
Well,
because it is said that it was supposed to be sold.
And it didn't sound like it was in Leroy's possession then, was it?
If Leroy wasn't there when exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's exactly what that sounds like to me, regardless of it wasn't in his possession, period.
So, right. It was in possession of the person who told the police that Leroy had the gun in the first place.
which is absolutely crazy. Just
Right.
just how this whole went down. And like I said, I will never understand, but I would guess I would understand even more if it was somebody that they did not know and they had no idea of the situation they were getting in. And as much as, to me, and this is my opinion, as much as it appears that they didn't know the situation, it appears that they did know. They were very relaxed around the situation from what they were told by individuals coming out and by the atmosphere and everything that surrounded. It just, to me, in my opinion, almost sounds like they were just tired of dealing with somebody that they had a history with.
Yeah,
That's just my opinion. That's just me. I'm throwing out there solely my opinion.
Leroy would have told you the same thing. Back in 2017, he was very, very wild, and it was definitely a game for him back in 2017. It was almost like proving that he was faster, he was smarter, and they couldn't get him unless he wanted them to.
Well, he was
That's pretty much how
I bet. Not in a,
he what?
I said, and I bet you he was a little cocky about it. Not in a,
No,
like, he knew
he
he could,
was.
so he's just arrogant about it. I can get away with it. I can see it. My husband is the same way. You're not telling me anything that I don't know. In regards to playing cat and mouse, if he thinks that he could, he will. He would back in the day.
Right.
He's an angel now, because
of course. But yeah, there were times where Leroy would literally videotape them looking for him while he would be sitting up in a tree.
And I bet
And it did not make them very happy.
Yeah, that had to be incredibly frustrating. And I guess whatever happened inside that house or as a result of that house or what happened is very important. But I just think at the end of the day, a lot have, and given that history that they have, there could have been many, many more subtle approaches that they could have taken to that day. And I do not understand, given the history, why they felt for a nonviolent person that they knew very well, they had to wait until all of those canisters, a house on fire, after no response from somebody that they knew.
Right.
Why it went down the way that it did.
It will forever be a question until it's not.
What was the blunt force trauma? I have never seen such a vague to the body. I've just never seen such
Right.
and if I'm wrong, and like, I would like to know why they would have left it that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many questions.
I've tried calling the medical examiner's office, but since I am not a next of kin and I don't have permission from the next of kin, I cannot get those answers.
And that has to be very incredibly frustrating for you. I mean,
definitely.
They just say that you were the girlfriend, but Leroy was very actively involved. I mean, he helped you raise those two little girls. Every picture, video that you post is he just seemed like an amazing father to them. And
well, he liked them. He liked kids more than anything. Like, he did not have the greatest childhood, so he wanted to make sure that any kid that was going through something that he went through or could relate to, at least they knew that he was there, and there, regardless of anything that was going on, they still had a father figure in their life. Regardless if he was, even his exes, like those, his ex's kids, they were still his kids. Like, and no matter what anybody said, those were whoever's kids. It didn't even have to be an ex. It could be a friend. He was Uncle Leroy, or he was Daddy Leroy, or he was always that. He was just always wanted to make sure that every child knew that they were cared about and loved.
I can't imagine.
At least that's what he said. That was his purpose in life, was to love every child the same way that Jesus loved the children.
You watch his videos, and that just, I mean, he gets down, he on the floor with them, and he has,
Yeah.
it just looks like he had the perfect amount of energy to keep up with them, and I wish.
Leroy said he was more of a kid than most kids.
Yeah.
And he was 30 years old.
And I can only imagine, just for his family and those that did know him, and they look at that day in reference to knowing him, and I can't imagine what they're feeling right now. So if you could ask the Ellie or the investigator or anybody, based on what they've said and based on what you found out through the autopsy reports and everything that you found out that doesn't match, what would one question or a few questions be that you would like?
Mostly about the gun. Leroy did have cyanide in his system. And one question since I've gotten that autopsy report is, how long does it take for those levels to begin going down in your blood? Because his autopsy was not done right away. Granted, it was only 2 days later, but I don't know if 2 days of a dead, I don't mean to be so blunt, but 2 days of a dead body laying there, does cyanide levels go down from that? Most of my stuff that I would ask would be for a medical examiner, because I have not gotten reports from the police department. It's been from dispatch and from the medical examiner. I definitely would like to know what the for sure cause of the fire was. There's some people on the scene that stated that the officers were seen with a gas can, which I would assume by then the police would have known that they were being recorded. But from videos that I can see, they're far enough away that if that was true, it could have been easily covered with the armored vehicle being in the place that it was, and bushes, and it. I would like to know where this gun is and why they stated that it was stolen. If I know for a fact that it was not stolen.
Now, by stolen from where?
First, they stated that it was stolen from Kentucky. So we lived in Kentucky at the time. They didn't say who in Kentucky. They just said it was stolen from somebody in Kentucky 2 weeks ago, which was, we were living in Kentucky at that time. So, but I had somebody else reach out to me that had stated that the sheriff contacted them personally and told them that a gun that they had reported missing in 2017 had been recovered on they didn't tell me the date, but from the house on George Street that Leroy was in, And some of the numbers, like the serial numbers or whatever, had matched the gun that they had reported missing back in 2017. So they needed to come to the sheriff's department to fill out the papers or whatever and to get their gun back. When this person who contacted me said that when they got to the sheriff's department told them that they were not in possession of the gun and they were not able to get it back because ATF had it.
Please, yeah.
And they live sort of in the area, but they don't live in Camden. I'm not sure exactly where they live, but it's not just like going down the street to the grocery store.
Yeah.
I think it's within like a half an hour. But going down there, that's still a jaunt.
Yeah.
Especially if you are going somewhere, being told that they have a gun that you reported stolen, and then getting there and it is no longer there, apparently.
Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah.
But you know for a fact that Leroy did not have, to the best of your knowledge, you don't think that Leroy was in possession of that gun. From the text messages, it didn't sound like he, on this day, was in possession of that gun.
It does not sound like it, no. I know that in the past he was in possession of that gun.
Yeah.
But on May 1st, at least on May 1st, he was not in possession of the gun. It was in the possession of somebody that told police that Leroy was in possession of the gun.
I just wonder why he would act. And it's rhetorical, it's just a question. I wonder why he would say that.
Well, from what I understand, and this is just what I have been told, it is not solid evidence or anything like that, but from what I am told, the person that bought the gun, there was a person who bought that gun, but within a week or two of Leroy passing away, he was arrested. I'm not sure why, but I tried to reach out to him, write letters, send an obituary, because it was a really good friend of Leroy's.
Yeah.
And I tried to set up a visitation and be put on like the phone list, and I was denied for everything. I never received a response back, which they didn't know me well. They've met me one time, so I would assume that.
I don't know. I feel like I would still reach out just out of respect almost,
Right.
Regardless. I feel like it's just crazy. Makes you wonder.
I don't know. I don't know why I was declined. It would have been nice to be able to ask if they actually bought the gun or not.
Yeah.
Because that was all word on the street.
I feel like if we got the answer to that, it would change a lot of things about.
Right. But then other people are saying that there was somebody on the scene that night saying that they were with Leroy when he sold the gun, and Leroy was using the money to buy their vehicle. So a lot of people like to talk.
Yeah. Which is, very, very common in
right. Which I questioned that person about it, and they said that Leroy was trying to buy their vehicle, but they know nothing about the gun.
Oh.
Yes.
Interesting.
So I don't know.
I would really like to see some people that could kind of corroborate that he was not at least in possession of the gun. I would like to.
There's a lot of people who they'll reach out, or they used to anyway, but there's a lot of people that will have called or texted or messaged me on Facebook, and a lot of people are afraid of the retaliation
Oh, I
that they
bet.
might receive if they go against some of these people, whether it's people who are law enforcement or not law enforcement. Like some of these people that even are not law enforcement are, from what I understand, still dangerous people.
Oh yeah, I believe it. I mean, and I guess
Which I'm glad that I don't know. I don't know them. I just know of them.
I cannot. It just makes me question what could have been so what could have been the reasoning behind if something more sinister happened and went down. I just wonder what would be the reason behind that.
The only thing that I can come up with is that Leroy loved outsmarting them and making the officers look stupid when they were in court. He liked to embarrass them by taking videos of them searching for him and showing them to people. He loved to outrun them. He's had several charges, and most of them would get dropped in court for sometimes even the littlest technicality, because like I said, Leroy knew his rights, he knew the law. And
so now how did they know that Leroy was at this house that day?
So from what I am told, they were on their way to somebody else's house and had gotten, this is one officer's recollection or account of it, is that they were on their way to one of Leroy's friends' houses, and which is also the person who Leroy was supposed to be getting a car from, but they knew nothing about the gun. That's the same person. They said that they were apparently on their way to that person's house when they got a ping on Leroy's phone that was in a bedroom, not just in the house, but in a bedroom at 307 George Street in Camden. Then another officer stated that they were on their way to a house on Rousey, which is it's almost within walking distance of the house that Leroy was in. And on the way there, they got a ping on Leroy's phone to a bedroom inside of the house on 307 George Street in Camden. So they both of the officers stated that the phone was pinged to a bedroom inside of the home, which from what I understand is also the same room that Leroy was found in.
Now, I am only asking this because I have no idea about I am so technologically behind. Can they ping I mean, I guess if it was on, they could locate it more specifically, but can they ping something? I thought when they did that, it was by the nearest tower.
I don't know how that works. I have no idea. I did talk to the some officers from Kentucky, from the town that we had lived in, and they said that it is not that specific.
That's what that's when you said that, I was just like, I thought they pinged from the nearest tower. Like, I didn't think that they could. Now, I know, like, you can have GPS on somebody's phone, but I still don't know if even with that, you can, like, literally locate them inside of a bed that specific.
Right.
I just always thought it was the location around.
Right.
That's crazy.
Hold on. My child does not want to go to bed.
Well,
so hold on 1 second.
my questions that I have are the I really want to know about what could be the fabric around his ankles, the blunt force trauma, where that was at specifically, and how for sure are we that we know that he was able to walk out of the house? Those are
Right.
some questions that I want answered.
I would love to have those answered. Unfortunately, nobody is answering them. Most of the time, I cannot even get a hold of anybody to answer them.
I just have so many questions, and that's kind of why we do this. Is anybody with knowledge of anything that we have spoken on tonight, or any questions, by all means, feel free to ask them. I am doing this myself, so I have to switch back and look at comments, but we're very open to questions. If you do not watch this live and you are listening and you have a question, drop it. Or if you have, more importantly, somewhere where information, a professional, like I said, I would really like to talk to somebody that knows a little bit about tear gas, if in relation to be going through what Leroy went through that day. I just have a few questions I would like how long could a conscious person, really last in there, in contrast to 38 to 42 canisters? How, at one point, would somebody be, rendered unconscious during that? Yeah, I just, we know he was, somebody asked, what did he do for them to ping his phone? Why were they looking for,
So the reason that they were there in the first place was because he apparently had a warrant out of Wisconsin, which was for violating his probation, not checking in. He also had a warrant for missing court in Benton County, Tennessee, which the reason he missed court was because nobody knew he was being released from a different jail in a different county. So they released him less than an hour before he was to be in Camden, Tennessee for court. So he had that misdemeanor warrant, and then he had not checking in with his probation or his PO warrant. So it's apparently enough to ping a phone. I don't know. When he's not checked in with his probation officer before, to my knowledge, they've pinged his phone to find him.
I never realized that they could ping it that specifically. I never thought that they could narrow it down like that. I could be wrong. I don't see how that's possible, which is crazy if you think about it. Because, I mean,
it kind of freaks me out. And Leroy would keep, I tried to, there was one time we went down to his grandma's in Tennessee, and I had only been to Tennessee maybe once or twice before then, so I had no idea how to get home. And I turned on his GPS to get the directions to go back to Wisconsin, and and he freaked out because he was like, do not turn my GPS on. Do not turn my location on. So I had to use my phone instead.
So you don't think that he would have had his location on?
No.
I mean, because I'm trying to think of ways how they would be able to ping him so specifically, I guess.
Right. And from what I have been told by people that were there with him, he had two phones. So I don't know which phone. I don't know if that's even true or not, but they said that he had two phones at the time. So, which makes sense.
Did you ever find the phone that they did ping?
What?
Did they ever find the phone that they did ping from?
I don't know which phone they found. They just asked me if I knew his unlock code, which I'm assuming I must have because I gave them a couple codes that it could have been, and they got in.
That is just so. I think that's so crazy. We have another person says, "Wow," and they ping his phone, but wouldn't ping my sister's when she took the kids and ran with them. And that's the other thing is
these big felons that violate probation. You gotta get them. That's all I gotta say.
That's what I'm saying. He's non-violent. You know, he gave the. I mean, pretty much all he did was always gave him the runaround.
Right.
And so for the things
Leroy wanted to live a normal life, and since he was a teenager, he did not get that chance. Since he was a child, he did not get a chance to live a normal life. So most of the time, he knew that he was going to go to jail because he didn't check in with somebody, or Tennessee would say he was on probation and he wasn't, so he knew he was going to go to jail anyway, so he tried to live a normal life as long as he could until he had to go back. Or he felt like he was stable enough to go back.
I just, with the so much history that they have with him, I can't understand why things transpired the way they did that day.
Leroy would say, "I don't even know what they want with me anymore. I'm not in Tennessee. If they don't want to deal with me, I'm gone. I don't know why they keep bringing me back." Because I'm out of their hair, not on probation, so why do they keep bringing me back? And in my opinion, this is exactly why. Because this is just my opinion, is I feel like the only reason that they kept bringing him back was to make sure that they never had to have problems with him again. Or they were so mad about the things that he did when he was younger, they just held this, just an opinion, that they just held a grudge for so long.
I mean, that's really the only thing that I can, that's my conclusion with it. And again, it's my opinion. I fully believe that Leroy, when everybody was called out, the commands, I just will never believe that he was able to physically walk out. I think that
I will not believe it until I have concrete proof of it.
I really think that he was already incapacitated, unconscious at that time. And it was because I just, from him, he was caught. I just think they would have known. And you know, and that's another thing I wanted to bring up. If they pinged in the bedroom, the same bedroom where they found him, they knew the whole time where
they were right outside that window.
They were all in those videos. They were literally right around those windows.
When they were shooting those tear gas canisters off, the SWAT vehicle was right outside that window. They were going straight for that window. Or that bedroom. Maybe not that specific window, because I believe that there is a window on the right side of the house that also goes to that bedroom. I could be wrong.
I don't think I have a view from that. No, because there's that's the one circled is the
yes, the one on the far right.
We're all talking about where he was at. They pinged in. They really threw the canisters in, and all of that. And it's just amazing to me, you know. In contrast to them being so relaxed on the other side of the house, it's just.
Right.
As far as they're concerned, he could have been anywhere all over that house. if he was conscious. I mean, it was almost like, and again, in my opinion, they already knew he was not
Targeted.
conscious in there. So
Right.
they knew that they had nothing to worry about. They knew they did not have to worry I mean, I've seen situations where somebody has had a gun and it's not loaded, and their thought process is, well, we don't know that, they don't know that, the people around us don't know that. We're going to act like that gun is fully active, loaded, and ready to go.
Right.
So, and you're going to act accordingly to that. And I don't think any of those officers, through the video footage that I've seen, acted like they were dealing with somebody that had a gun.
Right.
So, I mean, is that a different kind of protocol? I don't want to assume, but
Right.
protocol or not, I would be watching my own back and everybody else's if we thought that there was a dangerous person with a gun in there. And I think after the history that they have with Leroy and the way Leroy, I think they knew the same Leroy, and I think that they didn't. I don't think that was. They weren't. I mean, for this gun to appear 2 days later, it's just strange that they weren't acting with the gun on scene the day of.
Right.
So I think it's funny that they passed over it, and then 2 days later it shows up. So those are just my thoughts. And
Yep.
questions.
Magically, once the homeowner comes, it's magically there.
Yeah. So everything just seems very. And I guess if we're wrong, I mean, they are very, very more than welcome to come explain things that
Oh.
we've talked about. I invite them, come explain them. Yeah. I am very, very happy that
If that ever happens, you gotta first reach one of them.
I was so saying, if you guys share this and pass it around and they watch this video and they're like, well, that's bullshit. Well, come tell me why it's bullshit. We want to know.
Exactly.
We want to know why. Listen to everything that you said versus what they've said and tell us fill in the details, fill in the holes. Starting out where that blunt force trauma was, I would like to know that.
Right.
I think that's
I wish I would know.
I think that's a very big question that people, where? Because that could make it very big. And I guess, I'm not a professional, but they can sure tell you if it was hard enough to incapacitate somebody. I mean, there was bleeding. We do know that.
Right.
So what could bleeding between the brain and the skull do to somebody? Would they be conscious at that point? I want to know. So if anybody is watching this and they know these answers, by all means.
Yes, please.
Because I feel in many
something
cases, those professionals can definitely tell if it was a fall or something with blunt force. I mean, they use the word blunt force. That would suggest to me that it was not caused by a fall or bump in his head. To me, that just sounds like he got whacked somewhere with something.
Right.
So I would love anybody that could explain that. There's a lot of things. I mean, the more people
I've tried to talk to other forensic pathologists, and they say that without being able to see his body and see for themselves, they cannot give a definite answer to a lot of the questions that I have about his autopsy.
And he's been cremated.
Yes, from what I understand.
It's just very strange. Very strange.
Right.
Well, I hope we.
Who knows? Maybe his body is just sitting in a cooler somewhere. That sounds terrible.
You don't know that, though. It breaks my heart for you because you weren't just somebody, You were his girlfriend. He was helping you raise your daughters. You guys had this life together, and it breaks my heart that you don't know that,
Right. Because on his autopsy report, it says that a cremation was not approved. So that it makes me question whether or not he is even cremated.
That is, I did not know that. I'm learning that just now. I mean, I seen that I've read it and I've seen where it says it's not, but I guess I never really thought about
Right.
where that stands in relation to. I just assumed since he was there, he was cremated. Now that you brought that up, I guess that is
I
really.
mean, that's what I assume. But I would,
Not being in
like,
there,
in a way, I would hope by now he would be cremated. But at the same time, like, you don't want to think of somebody just sitting in a cooler somewhere. But you also don't want to think about somebody sitting in a safe either.
Somebody made a very good point. Maybe he got hit with one of the cans they were throwing.
And that is a possibility. I've thought about that too.
Yeah, and the cause, but I mean, so where did he get hit at? If it was hard enough to make his head bleed, I mean, at least it could be explained. At least it could be answered.
I feel like if he got hit with one of those canisters, there would have been some type of bruising or something, or if it hit his head through his skull enough to have blood between the brain and the skull, now I don't know, but I feel like there would have been some type of laceration then.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've never been hit with tear gas.
No way.
But it is a possibility. From what I understand, though, in the past, when he's been in situations like this with tear gas, or anytime they came to his house, because when he lived in Tennessee, his grandma had a very long driveway, so he would be able to see them come up. He wouldn't just sit out in the open.
Yeah.
So I would assume that he would have been blocking himself under a bed, in a closet, in a bathroom.
Now, where was he at when the tear gas situation happened before?
That I do not know.
I would really.
Whose house, or where, like a location?
Location,
Inside the house.
Huh?
A location inside of the house?
No, the time before with the tear gas situation, you had mentioned that
Back in 2017.
Yeah.
They had came and they found him in a closet with a blanket wrapped around him. And as soon as the sheriff said, "Hey, it's Ken, like, you can come out now, I'm here," and Leroy came right out of the closet. They still had to go into the house, but he was in a closet with a blanket wrapped around him.
But it was after how many cans? What?
I have no idea. The sheriff did not tell me how many cans of tear gas they threw in.
Like, that.
But when Leroy would talk about that situation, he said that from that specific situation until the time of his death, that time he claimed that is the first time they ever tried killing him.
Yeah.
And he was terrified from that day until the day he died that he was going to be killed by police.
And you and I have talked about that. You had mentioned that before. Things changed after that time. And it is just really crazy now, this time on May 4th, that they are saying that pretty much the exact same.
Yep, the sheriff's
exact same story that happened the previous time.
Yep.
Except for
from the sheriff, anyway.
This time when the sheriff let him know he was there.
Right. because the sheriff was there right away. And the sheriff claims that he remembered that when Leroy knew that he was there, that he came right out of the closet. So he tried to talk to him right away to let him know that he was there and he could come out because he wasn't going to let anything happen to Leroy. That is what the sheriff is saying.
Man. Same story.
Yep. I don't know Ken like that, so I can't. I don't know how he is. Like, he seemed nice and friendly, and he joked around and told lots of stories about Leroy, but some of the stories that he told me were stories that I had already heard, and coming from the other end of the stick, it was interesting to listen to their perspective on it. But like, they still laughed, or Ken still laughed. He said that specific time in 2017, he was like, I had to get out of bed for this. It was 2:00 in the morning. Like, he went in there and he told Leroy to come on out because he's old and he needs to sleep.
It just seems to me that from the time that when they first got there and the first people came out, alerted him of the situation. Yeah, Leroy's in here. Yeah, he has a gun. Yeah, he's armed. And he sent them back in. It was just either one, he didn't believe the gun story, or two, he believed regardless that Leroy was not a violent person and he would never have thought Leroy to
I don't know.
use it.
He says that he doesn't understand why Leroy didn't just come out. That's what he says anyway.
And then by the time all said and done that night, this was the chief's house.
Yep, the chief of police. That, I wish I could zoom in. There's that little like yellowy orange thing to the right of the stairs. And then there's the stairs. Leroy's body they laid him right in between those for 4 hours in the pouring rain under a tarp.
Which was so many questions.
To the people who knew Leroy and his background with these police, it seemed like to us that it was like he was a trophy. And they had to show the world that they finally got Leroy. Oh.
He just seemed like such a wonderful. I mean, yeah, he was
taken.
It seemed
just
like
a couple weeks before his death. And that's not even his kid, and like, they are like so much alike even now. Like, the stuff that she says. That was the only dad that she had. And I don't know. Like, she's only 5, so it's hard for her to understand where he is and that we can't go just visit him. But that was definitely his baby.
And you can tell, you see it in all the videos that you posted, all the pictures. And I know that will never be enough now, but you know, in times like these, you're glad for him because they're all that you have.
Not going to remember him. Like, that is the biggest thing, is that, like, especially the younger, like, he has kids that are older. They're not his kids, but they are his kids. But there's some of them that are older. Like, his son is in his teenage years, so he will remember Leroy, and my kids and some of the other people's kids are so young that they only have us to know who he was. And that, like, I can't even begin. There's things that he did that were bad, and like he had a history of being in and out of prison or jail, but there's not one, even the pastor at his funeral said that Leroy knew he had a better relationship with God, and he knew the Bible better than even our pastor at church did. Like, I even when Leroy was doing things like selling drugs and stuff, his relationship with God still showed through that.
Yeah.
Like, he would come to
I think a
people's
lot of
houses
people,
and see what they were doing around their kids, and he would, like, I don't know, he would like get mad at the parents, and he would see that they were spending more money on drugs than they were their children, so he would make sure that the kids had food, their bills were paid, and then he, until they got their life together, he just wouldn't mess with them anymore. He would still make sure that the kids were taken care of, play basketball with them, buy them shoes. He would drop $400 on going to buy school stuff.
And glasses.
Glasses.
That's what some of us said. No.
She said that somebody said at his funeral that he went and bought their kid glasses. But I can't get this one to go to sleep. She just likes to anything about Leroy. She's
I bet. I can imagine like I was telling you earlier, just being in the bathtub with my youngest and him being on the outside and just mom, and it's just, you think like those things would still happen. He's so young, those things would still happen. He would still be walking around saying that if I wasn't here right now.
Like, Leroy would go the extra mile. What would he do if you guys were in the bathtub or the shower with towels? Do you remember?
He would put lotion on us.
He'd put lotion on you. No, I'm talking about with the towels.
What towel?
Did he put towels in the dryer?
Yeah.
Oh, to heat them up, to warm them up.
So we lived in Iowa for a while in a trailer, and it was freezing cold in that trailer, like all the time during the winter. And he would always make sure to put the towels in the dryer, just so when they got out of the bath, they would have a warm towel.
Yeah, I can definitely. My husband does the same thing for my youngest. Too. He's 2. He's still in diapers. My husband will warm up the wet wipes for him.
Oh my God. Can you tell them what your favorite memory of Leroy is?
I don't remember too many.
There's just so many.
What's your favorite thing about Leroy?
That he loved us.
Yeah.
I want Mom.
What was something funny that he would do?
Probably the stuff that he did in Kentucky, like when he used the things to make a door handle.
We didn't have a door handle on our door, so on our bedroom. Are you talking about the bedroom door?
No,
the front door. So our front door didn't have a door handle, like the screen door. So he took one of those little metal pieces on the bottom of a bed frame, and he duct taped it to the front door.
Oh, ghetto rig.
Oh, yeah.
He did so many things to the house. Like when he broke it, when he made a hole in our ceiling.
He fell through the attic one time, and there was a hole in the closet.
Oh my goodness.
And it was in our room.
Did you see his legs?
We weren't in there when he went.
Oh.
I'm still mad at him for that. Because you didn't believe me when I saw the spider at night.
I didn't believe her when she saw a spider coming out of the hole.
No,
Very afraid of spiders. I understand that.
I hate spiders.
Me too.
If you could tell Leroy one thing right now, what would you tell him?
I love him.
How much? More than me?
No.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah. All the way to the North Pole. And up here, and down here, and up here,
Oh my
and down
goodness.
here, and up here, and down here.
Well, that's not enough.
Oh. Well, I appreciate you coming back, and if there is anything updated that you want to come back and talk about, I really hope that everybody shares this. There are just too many questions that are unanswered. And if the least we can do is get them answered, then I would be, on my part, I would be happy about that.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you. You just want to be a little star right now, don't you?
Yeah.
Huh?
It's so night time. You should be in bed.
Yeah, it's almost 10 o'clock. This whole winter break thing is screwing us up.
It always did. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did you used to like when you had to watch Annabelle? Leroy liked watching scary movies with the kids, and I would fall asleep because I'd be so scared.
I hate that.
What about snowmen?
Scary snowmen?
No, did you guys used to do snowmen?
Yeah.
Did you like doing snowmen?
I'm sure you guys did lots of things together, huh? Was he your best friend? You know he's always going to be with you.
Where
Everywhere
is
you go. Everywhere you go.
But where is he?
In heaven.
With who?
God. Equals 1.
Nope. She's doing subtraction flashcards now.
Yeah. Smarty. I'm bad at math, so
10.
about all I can do is the basic.
Yeah.
Well, I will let you off, and so that way you can go put her to bed.
Yes.
You are always more than welcome to come back. I hate that we have to do it this way, but I'm really glad that I can help you out.
Yeah. Were there any other questions or anything?
I think
I can't see any of the things that you see.
You can't see the comments?
No.
Oh, you're supposed to be able to. Just so you're.
When I click chat, all it says is private chat. Chat with the host and other guests, but there's a big gray box. So I can't see any of them.
I don't know. Let me see, and I don't have my glasses on. I will have to.
Next time.
I'll have to figure it out because you're supposed to be. I have it because there is an option to where I can turn off the comments for like I'm trying to if my eyes get big, I'm trying to read the screen without my glasses on. I apologize.
Screenshot it and send it to you when we get done.
Yeah, because you're supposed to definitely be able to see those comments. So, but yeah, I appreciate you coming on here. I encourage everybody to share this and help get the word out. We just really want some questions answered. A lot of things don't make sense, and I believe let's end it this way. Out of doing all of this, what is your end goal? What would you like to see happen?
The only thing that I want is to have a transparent case where there's always going to be questions no matter what, but once I know for sure who is responsible for Leroy's death, whether it is Leroy or somebody else, once I know for sure who is responsible for his death, that's all that I want to know.
I believe that regardless of what went down that day, there was a lot of things that could have been done differently. And I think somebody should be held accountable for the way things went down and transpired. I mean, especially the history behind the situation.
I feel like regardless of if Leroy wanted the end result to be his death, if that is what he wanted, there are a lot of things that they could have done that they did not do to prevent that from happening.
Amen. Especially with dealing with him previously, I feel that they knew very well at some point that they could have went in a lot sooner.
Right.
And that's just my opinion, but
I completely agree with you, but
I really hope that we get enough attention. I mean, at least for them to step out and say, all right, we'll answer some of these questions for you. I would love to see that happen.
Right. It took several months to hear from the sheriff, and I've heard from him one time. The only person that they allow me to speak to freely at the sheriff's department is somebody who is from Wisconsin, which is where I'm from.
Which is...
Yeah, it's strange.
Very strange. Everything about this is very strange. Like, I understand that, technically you guys weren't married and next of kin and all that stuff, but...
Right. I can understand all the legalities of it.
I get it, but, I mean, at some point... He had a much bigger role in your life than what you deserve to not know, I feel.
I agree.
So I feel like with enough shares and enough awareness and maybe a petition to even get these questions answered, put the questions in the petition that we want answered,
right,
and share it out, and just anything we can try to do to bring awareness to the questions that you want answered. So I have a link. I do know a few people that are into petitions that I'm going to reach out and talk to and see if anything that we want to do that a petition would be the right way to go about that. And from what I've seen, again, I'm not very technologically savvy here. They are really easy step by step to set up the petition. So
right. And even at the end of the day, if they Leroy always said, when I die, throw my body in the bonfire and just have a bonfire with my body. So even just getting him out of that safe and tossing him into the air is so much better than him being locked up. He's had enough of that. He was locked up pretty much from the time he was his teenage years of 14, 15, on and off until his death.
He just needs to come home. That's no place for him to be, I feel. As a mother, regardless of the situation, regardless of everything, I just feel he should be able to come home at this point.
Right. Yep. It's been long enough.
I appreciate you coming here and you
I
talking to us.
appreciate you.
It's not an easy thing to do, but you have been very, very, very well spoken and very informative and very, that's why it was easy to see what they were saying in comparison to what you found out, because you have done it through the things that you have gotten from them.
Right. A lot of people ask me, well, if they haven't released reports, how do I know these things? They haven't released reports, but the medical examiner had to release a report, and the dispatcher is not the sheriff. I mean, it's part of the sheriff's department, and they released it after they were given the okay from the sheriff's department, but it's still not a cop's recollection of what happened that day. So all I have to go on is an autopsy and a dispatch report, and then anything that has been said over the phone from law enforcement.
I'm going to read them to you since you cannot see.
Yeah.
I did not know you could not see. I'm so sorry. Because that's what I was going to have to do when they popped up. If you seen something that you wanted to answer. They haven't released him to the family, and why?
His parents both need to sign off on forms to release him from the funeral home, and that has not yet happened.
So
that's as simple as I can put it.
So we were thinking about making a petition to kind of nudge, bring a little attention to the fact and see if maybe we can at least try to get him home. Out of respect, I don't mean anything by it on any sides. I can understand all sides, but I can also understand as a mother, he just needs to come home. Well, I will hop off here. If people are watching this and you guys have more comments or questions, it does not have to end when the live ends. Alyssa is really good at watching and coming on and answering. So if you guys are watching through the video, don't be afraid to drop a question. She'll pop in and she'll answer. And more importantly, and your best route would be to just go ahead and go join her group that she has for Leroy. If I did not post it in the descriptions, as soon as I end here, I will post it so that way everybody has it. It's Justice for, now I know you changed it.
I know it used to be the hashtag, but it was confusing people. So now it is just Justice for Leroy Stoker, STOCKER. But it's so much easier when people comment their questions within the group. Yes. Otherwise, I'm taking all of my day answering questions from this group and this group and this page. It's so much easier just to do it on one post, because a lot of people do have the same questions, and some of them are the same questions that I have, so I can only answer them to as much as I can, and it's frustrating for me sometimes because there's some people who have the same questions as I do, and they're not understanding why I cannot answer them. And the reason I cannot answer them is because law enforcement will not answer them.
There's only so much you can do.
Right. But the easiest way to get a question answered is please just put it in the group so I'm not answering it 50 times a day.
That's why I tell everybody, I was like, I'm not here, don't share my stuff. I always post the group. So go into there and answer your questions or ask your questions, because I'm just here to amplify what you guys have to say. So the best place to go would be, I always tell everybody, go to the family groups, find the groups and the pages that are ran by the families, listen to what they are saying, listen to what they have to say, and then go share that information into all of your favorite true crime groups that you're in. So
Yeah, feel free to share anything.
So that's what I'm going to do. Go to I try to figure out what the families themselves are speaking, and then that's where I share out. So I just encourage everybody else to do that.
Yep.
So
appreciate you.
Yes. Well, guys, I'm going to get off here. I will ramble. I'm not really good at saying bye to anybody. You can ask anyone in my
Me neither. I'm just rolling with it.
So I'm just going to say, I'm going to end it the way I always do with Ash. This is Ash with TC Spotlight. Until next time, stay safe and have a good night.